Could I please call this meeting to order? Town Council meeting, Thursday, January 14th. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, announcements. The Town Hall offices will be closed on Monday, January 18th, for observance of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Okay, the two budget meetings left. Thursday, January 21st at 6 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room the budget meeting will involve assessing, fire, code enforcement, communications, police, and police detail. The next budget meeting is on Monday, January 25th at 6 p.m., again here in the Matthew Thornton Room. On Thursday, January 28th at 7 p.m. in this room is a regular council meeting. And just as a reminder and preparation for everyone, on Tuesday, February 9th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the Merrimack High School, please note the change in place. It's the Merrimack High School. Located at 36 McElwain Street is the presidential primary. Any other announcements, Paul?
Yes. On that same vein, absentee ballots for the February 9th presidential primary are now available at the town clerk's office. If you'd have to have an absentee ballot, please go to the town clerk.
That's it. Okay. Okay, Kinder Morgan proposed Northeast Energy Direct pipeline project. Just a couple of pieces of information. Liberty Utilities has requested approval of another 35,000 decatherms from the PUC, which is a Public Utilities Commission, and we were notified of this on December 29th, and we were asked to provide with the coalition encouragement not to be able to be interveners. Well, there was no way we could, in a day and a half, get the council together to be able to determine whether we should intervene or not. But I can tell you that the coalition did file for intervener status, so they are interveners in that setting, and they will keep us informed, and we'll monitor that closely. The New Hampshire Attorney General and Office of Energy and Planning have filed with FERC for intervener status. And the last thing, and this is a last minute for the council, we received a letter from the New Hampshire Coalition that had been submitted to them by the Massachusetts Coalition of Towns, requesting if we would write a letter of support related to asking FERC to combine the proposals for additional gas pipeline capacity in New England into one consolidated FERC review. We received this letter today. We distributed it via email to everyone. My first question is, does anyone need more time to review it? Because I wouldn't mind taking a couple of minute break if people need to read it. No? Okay. So I'll open to the floor as to all they're asking. Tad Putney, who's heading the New Hampshire Coalition, and he's in Brookline. He's the town manager?
Town administrator.
He would sign this, but he needs approval by all of the towns that are in the coalition. So we told him we had a meeting this evening, and we would get back to him about whether we would approve of this. So what is the pleasure of the council?
Move to authorize approval.
Okay, motion made by Tom Mahon.
Second.
Second by Tom Koenig. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Bill. Oh, speak to the motion. Sorry, Tom.
This is timely, if you will, given the article that you distributed to us from British Columbia and Alberta in opposition to a crude oil pipeline for exactly the same reasons. They did not provide complete information for them or enough information to the two provinces for them to feel that they could make an adequate decision on the issue. And the other one is the other two articles you sent around from the western part in New York and from the Berkshires, dealing with the same issues. Okay, I mean, FERC is just looking the other way. You just know, they're just not. They just don't want to pay attention, and they're just and Kinder Morgan is just trying to take advantage of it by saying, "Oh, we aren't going to have anything more till April," which is now four months into a 12-month process, and expect us to respond in some fashion. So that's why I think it's appropriate and it's timely to agree to us to agree this letter be sent. The other thing I would ask is that he makes sure that it goes to the state leadership.
I believe they're already CC'd on it.
No, they are.
No,
Yes.
not the New Hampshire.
Not the New Hampshire.
Yes, it says Custer, Ginta
No.
State
I'm
leadership.
talking about the governor.
Governor Hess
is there.
Under Charlie
Right.
Baker.
our Attorney General.
Okay.
Did you mean maybe DES or in another agency, Tom?
Well, who was it? Oh,
Because I think there's somebody else you want to send it to. I have the feeling if they weren't on that list, then
I'm more thinking of the Speaker of the House, President of the Senate. And is it OPM, Office of in the governor's office, the one that filed the intervener status. They'll get that from the governor. So because that, I think one of the reasons they filed the intervener status is that we met with them in December and met with them after the meeting with the governor to discuss the particulars of this whole process, and based on the concerns that they expressed at that time, their interest went up in what was going on.
Now Jasper is with the House. Who's the head of the Senate? Do you know?
Chuck Morse
Morse.
from Salem.
Okay, I think that's reasonable.
I support that.
Tom Koenig, do you have anything in terms of second? Bill?
In the email that Eileen forwarded to us with the draft document, it attached correspondence from Tad expressing the sense of urgency. He then goes on in the next paragraph saying we can wait a week if
Right.
people have trepidation about the context of the letter. The context of the letter has two bullet points, one expressing frustration and the other asking for a response to the November 20th letter that the town sent in correspondence with all the other communities to FERC. I absolutely would support a letter that includes the language with the frustration piece. As it relates to a response to the letter, the way that it's written, saying that our letter may have been overshadowed, I felt was kind of snarky and kind of was trite. It almost like was saying, we sent you a letter, why didn't you respond to us? And
sounds good to me.
I think that was highlighting the frustration and the non-compliance of Kinder Morgan. Okay, here's a copy.
That was
Eileen?
I just wanted to say that he just sent another one that I'm sending on down to say that he needs to have it by tomorrow, which is the deadline. So he's clarified that.
Okay.
And
But you're right, we did.
you're right.
In the
Nancy
last
picked
part.
up on that, too. So,
Like, why are we in such a rush? Because we could have done it. But he has since written back about this.
Yeah, so we really don't have the opportunity to
Delay it.
delay it and change it or anything like that, as usual. But we appreciate everything that they're doing and how they're taking the lead on a lot of this stuff, so, especially Tad and Brookline.
Bill, you have anything else, or
I'm good, thank you, Madam Chair.
Jody?
I appreciate the coalition's efforts greatly, and I appreciate them trying to keep all the communities in the loop. They send out a wealth of information, and I'm appreciative of it. The collaborative efforts of 13 towns in New Hampshire is difficult. All the boards meeting at different times. Sometimes, as the intervener for the PUC, we weren't able to meet that deadline, but I think it's going to be a tricky thing to try and coordinate all of these towns, and I think that we're all doing a great job, and I think Tad is doing a great job. So the last minuteness, which while it is difficult sometimes, it's better than nothing. And we're also now coordinating this with another state, with Massachusetts. So it's a lot of different government entities to try to coordinate. So I really think they're doing a fine job. I understand what Bill's saying, and I think that's going to be just a matter of opinion personally. A lot of the correspondence we forwarded isn't snarky enough, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. That's how I feel about this whole process. I feel we've gotten no respect from the federal government or from Kinder Morgan, and I feel we've been, they're trying to take advantage of us, and I don't have a problem with that. You could also take it as they're giving FERC an out, saying, we understand you may not be responding to us right away because you're busy with all these documents. But anyway, the 2 points of this letter I think are very critical. They are sharing the frustration with the process, most importantly with FERC accepting the application as incomplete as it was. And we've said time and time again, so many TBDs to be determined in their application, to not have that information. And as Tom Mahon eloquently pointed out, they're just not giving us information, and it's just sliding through the process, and that's very frustrating. And I think it's disrespectful. And to request that FERC respond to a question, a very simple question, and they can say, we'll have to think about it. We've got your request, and we'll at least consider it and get back to you. But we're not getting any answers from anyone, and this is a huge project. These towns are greatly impacted by it, and to not even get a response, again, I feel is disrespectful. So to express frustration and respectfully, in my opinion, request a response, I think it's a great letter, and I wholeheartedly support the efforts of the coalition to send this. Thank you, Nancy.
Any other discussion? Dan?
I'd be amiss if I didn't throw my 2 cents in. You all knowing me. I support the motion for solidarity only. But as Bill was saying, and as far as I had said before, I just feel like these letters, they just don't matter much. But for the sense of solidarity on it, I'm going to go for it. But something Tom had said, and I wrote down when he said about FERC not kind of paying attention, I wrote down, FERC is doing what they're designed to do, unfortunately, though. So that the homework that I've done for years has been, call me the most cynical guy in the room, but FERC isn't really doing anything that's not out of their nature or out of the line. And the more you learn about it, the more frustrated and angry you get. But they've done nothing illegal, and that TBA, as soon as you said it, I bet, I don't know this, but it sounds like a lawyer term within their, it sounds like they probably have a right to say TBA, to be announced later. And so it's just one of those things. It's just something you almost can't win about. So I support the motion for those reasons. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, John?
One last thing. One of those other items was the stress of the EPA over FERC's similar behavior and trying to move them to what they think is their appropriate role in the draft environmental impact statement, and getting essentially no response there either. So it's just a whole. It's just the whole fabric, Dan.
And FERC and EPA are probably not the best of bureaucratic buddies, right? Those are probably two bureaucracies that are at loggerheads most of the time.
Which is symbolic of the federal
Yep.
bureaucracy problem. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Yes, Bill?
Not to belabor the point, but I almost would have preferred a letter that talked about the frustrations, period. Just focus on the fact that the application was incomplete, yet FERC chose to accept it as complete. You know, quite honestly, if it's not, if it has TBD, you know, anywhere in any of those reports, it's not a completed application. To me, outlining a letter expressing those particular frustrations, I think, is better than saying what was said in paragraph 2 about you didn't respond to our letter from November 20th. I'd rather focus on the task at hand, on issues that impact our community, and worry about those, you know, those particular issues as opposed to style. I mean, to me, it's stylistic. You know, I'm like Dan. I am going to support the motion because the policy was made to submit that particular letter. It's policy. I'm going to stand in solidarity with the council. But I really think, and I do agree with what's been said about the coalition communities, you know, I don't mean to be myopic. I care about Merrimack. I care about what impacts Merrimack. Merrimack is my focus on this thing right now. And I feel like we are obligated, not to say that we're not, but I feel like we need to be putting, I'm not here, we need to put our best foot forward in representing our community. So that's all I got to say. So thank you.
You're welcome. Or somebody wants, oops. Go ahead, Jody.
I'm sorry, I have to say one more thing. I'm not sure I understand what Bill means by style. Asking for a response to the request to propose that the FERC does a consolidated review of all of these pipeline projects, to me, that's not style. That's a very reasonable, valid, pertinent request. And again, if people don't understand what that request was about, and it does greatly impact, that request does greatly impact Merrimack itself. And while I care about Merrimack, I care about the entire state, there is strength in solidarity. That is one of the reasons why we're all working together. But requesting that they review all of the proposals together would basically force them to consider the need of the quantity of gas that all of these projects would bring to the New England region. And in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, I think that's a very, very pertinent fact that I think it ought to be consideration. We've all, and maybe it won't do us any good, Dan, but I'm not going to roll over and play dead at this point. But we've all learned way more about this FERC process than I think any of us ever cared to learn. But to find out that they review each one of these pipeline projects individually
Separately.
and don't take the combined quantity of gas
How they
that
interact.
if they were to all, and they could all pass the FERC process and FERC could approve all of them, to think that that's how the process works is mind-boggling to me. So that part of this letter requesting, again, an answer to our request for that combined review is very, very important and pertinent to Merrimack. Thank
And that
you.
request was made in November, and they've not received a response. Right. Okay.
It would also require FERC to get together and decide whether they're going to consolidate or not.
Right.
They're like
even
any
the
other-
response of saying, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, would be nice.
They don't have to.
They don't have to,
I
and to be
know,
honest with you,
and
Nancy,
therefore they won't.
but Nancy,
'cause
that's
they
not
don't
a-
have to.
but that's not a response.
It's not their purview to consolidate policy. That's done at another level. They're a planning board.
That's
on a
exactly
local level,
correct.
So it's not their thing.
Okay. Although everyone understands the motion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Saying none. 700. Thank you, everybody, for this last-minute activity. Okay. Comments from the press or public?
Can I just ask two more questions before we
Absolutely.
move on? I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm assuming that there is no word on an MVD Kinder Morgan meeting. Otherwise, Eileen would have shared that with us. So I just want to make sure that the public is aware that we haven't heard anything. And I wanted to know if we had heard anything more, if we had received a completed roadwork permit from Kinder Morgan since our last meeting.
No, we have not. It has been completed, but the required information has not been submitted. So they completed the application, it came in, it went to the person who reviews them at DPW, and he said you need to provide for insurance, as he does for everybody, and you also need to be more specific rather than to ask for a blanket request, and we haven't heard anything back since.
So at this point, they don't have a granted roadwork
They do
permit?
not.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
All
Nancy.
set? Okay. Come right up, Gina. Unless you're the press now. No,
Oh, I thought you said public.
no. It's press or public. So.
Okay, Gina Rosati, 15 Dunbarton. I also want to thank the coalition, because without the coalition, I think Merrimack would be home to a huge pipeline. And I also want to point out that tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern Time is the last that anyone can file a motion to intervene. You do not have to be in a butter to intervene. If you live in the town of Merrimack, if you live in the state of New Hampshire, you will be affected by this pipeline in some way, shape, or form. So if you would like to intervene on the Facebook page, Merrimack Citizens for Pipeline Information, there is a pinned post at the top. It will give you instructions on how to e-file. At this point, you would have to e-file in order for it to get there on time. I also want to point out when we're talking about, and this is more for folks at home, when we're talking about why it's so important to look at all of these pipelines together, the governors asked for 0.6 billion cubic feet a day of gas. If Kinder Morgan, Access Northeast, and AIM are all approved, it would bring in approximately 3.5 billion cubic feet a day of gas. If anybody at home cares to Google Bearhead, it's a facility that they want to build up in Nova Scotia that would be exporting liquid natural gas. In order to get that liquid natural gas, they have to get it from Marcellus Shale fields up through New England to Dracut, which would then go up through the Maritimes and Northeast Pipeline. Spectra is in charge of 70% of that spigot that would turn the gas to go either way. So this gas, a good portion of it would be for export. So I think it would be to everybody in New Hampshire's benefit to fight this. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Anyone else? No. Okay. Resignations, recognition, retirements, none. Appointments. Annual review with the Conservation Commission. Come on up, Tim. Per Town of Merrimack Charter, Section 6-6, at least annually, there should be an annual review with the Conservation Commission. This agenda item is to highlight the Commission's significant actions, current projects, anticipated actions, and to raise any concerns the Council should know or could act upon. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
That's good. Hopefully you can all hear me. So, in case you're curious, that's a picture of Gilmore Hill Memorial Forest in the background. That's a little wet area that's behind there. So, yeah, why not? Showcase another property. A lot of people aren't familiar with it or where it is, and thought, why not? So I'm pretty much going to follow the format I've followed in the last couple of years. It seems to have worked. So we'll start off by introducing the members. The entire commission is here tonight. So starting at the top, we have Mike Boisvert. We have Matt Kieran, my vice chair. Mike is in the back there. Next to Mike is Cindy Glenn. And in front of Cindy is Gage Perry, and then myself, and of course our ex officio, Jody, is here at the table. But what you see on the page is a lot of red. I need some help with that red. Don't know how to do it. I'm doing my best.
Almost.
We're working on it. We're hopefully going to be interviewing this coming week, so we might fill in a slot there. So we seem to have scared off our last alternate member, and I only mean that in jest. Only in jest. So, but we are busy. So, but it doesn't require any previous experience. We train on the fly, and we'll give you as much work as you want, or as little. So that's my members. Just quickly, conservation commissions are established per RSA 36-A. We're responsible for the proper utilization and protection of natural resources and watershed resources in a town, and to coordinate unofficial bodies with similar purposes. So, which is always a very interesting phrase there. But other things we do is we provide recommendations to DES on dredge and fill permits. Also dealing with compensatory mitigation projects. We review and provide recommendations to the planning department. Actually, the planning board, I need to fix that, for projects in the Aquifer Conservation District and wellhead areas. And we manage, and I bumped the number, approximately 1,600 acres of conservation open space land in Merrimack. So it's probably more than that, but I haven't added them all up at this point. So what I thought I would do is, last year when I went through this, I had a slide that said proposed activities for 2015. So what I wanted to do was status that slide so you can see where we're at. Our number one activity, which you'll see again in this year, is to continue acquisition mode. The town has provided us with a large sum of money with the intent of conserving properties and managing those conserved properties, and we're trying to leverage that money and use it appropriately. So this year we purchased approximately 120 acres, and that is a correction. We thought it was more than that, but when we actually dug in and reviewed all the deeds, the number is about 120 acres, which we did in November. And that all abuts Greater Woods. We're trying to work on providing educational opportunities. So this past year, we sponsored a vernal pool party out at Greater Woods, and so in cooperation with the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. That was fairly well attended, and there's lots of different pictures of the event if you go to the NHACC site. Last year, we wanted to understand what the Ned Pipeline means to Merrimack, and boy, have we found a whole lot. One of the other items was to suggest an update to Chapter 111. Didn't get to that. But it really does need to be done, and you'll see some emphasis on that. We want to create updated and consistent forestry management plans for all our properties. We've discussed it, looked at different ways of doing it, talked about whether or not we do it ourselves or we contract that out, because it takes a lot of energy when you think about the number of hours that went into the Horse Hill Definitive Plan and the Greater Woods Stewardship Plan. It's a large bit of work to do it. But then again, those are significant properties. The smaller properties wouldn't need that effort, but still. And you'll see in our next slide that, granted we didn't get to things, but we did do a bunch of other stuff as well. Continue to implement and learn from our water control activities. We installed 4 water control devices in different properties, and I believe if you speak to Public Works, you'll find that they've spent a lot less time managing water issues. Granted, we had somewhat of a dry summer and fall, but those devices have worked very well. We paid for the maintenance on them, so our own Public Works folks didn't have to maintain them. And they seem to be working well. We're not getting any complaints from some of the neighbors where we had some issues before. So I think it's proved itself. I understand that wastewater may have also done some device work. Did I have that right? Yes. Yeah. So the town now has its own devices as well, and we're looking at doing some more of that activity. And then what we need to do is update our beaver management policy to reflect the new learning that we have. And we'll working on it. We continue to want to bring more people on our properties. We've found that we're often exceeding the capacity of the Amherst Road parking lot for the Horse Hill Nature Preserve, bleeding out into the roadways and things like that. So we're looking at expanding that parking lot in the springtime, providing more opportunities for people to stay off the roadway. We may actually want to look at signage along the road to discourage people from parking on the road as soon as we get that parking lot expanded. So we did a wetlands study out there to find out where our wetlands are and find out how much room we have, and believe we can bring the site at probably 2.5 times the size of what we have now. So we looked at going as far as paving it, but that gets into a 6-figure number that just didn't seem to be right to do. So we'll see where we're at. We also looked at using the same surface that was used at the Wasserman Park, a lower parking lot that provides access to the beach. And as soon as there's a town project that would allow that, maybe that's something we can consider doing. We've had some slow improvement on our Merrimack Outdoors website. I'm just not a great webmaster, but that's what it is. So, and we'd like to try and document what we're doing so that way we can have that continuity for future commissions. So, questions? All right, so some of the other things we were doing, again, the Ned Pipeline, lots of reviews and intervener and all kinds of good stuff. So we did an ecological assessment of the Horse Hill Nature Preserve and Gilmore Hill Memorial Forest. Looked at wildlife endangered species. We have quite a report on that, plus we have some other documentation. So if we ever want to do anything on those properties, we have a pretty good idea of what's out there, where it is, what it's doing, and what impacts any kind of project out there would have on those critters and plants and everything else. So found some very interesting species out there, some things not found anywhere else in our state. So it's we got quite a little treasure in between those two properties. So, and I suspect on some of our other properties as well. So. Again, we did some water. We worked with the town to do some water control devices for beaver activity. We had a couple of scout projects that we were part of. We did a large project out on Greater Woods. Actually, we didn't do it. Joe did all that work. So, and it's quite a thing that he put together out there for us. So I stare at Matt because Matt's kind of the coordinator for that sort of stuff. So. Plus, also James Jolly did a project out behind the high school to help start the implementation of the Town Center Trail, connecting hopefully at some point down under Chamberlain Bridge over to Watson Park and complete the connections all the way across into Wildcat Falls. So, plus his benches and other things that are out there, he did quite an outstanding job there. So, we continued our annual seedling giveaway. This year will be our 16th year of doing that. It's a great opportunity for people to plant trees and shrubs and things for different kinds of areas, for the different areas of their lawn or their properties.
I know the date has been established for that, Gage? May
7th.
May 7th, thank you.
The Saturday before Mother's Day, so you can give Mom a present. So we'll be doing that giveaway at Courier Orchards on that Saturday morning. So. We are also negotiating the purchase of 3 additional parcels right now along the lines of about 120 more acres. Hopefully we'll expand Greater Woods another 100 acres this coming year or so. And then another small parcel along Babusick Brook. That parcel of Babusick Brook, we should be coming to you probably in the February or early March timeframe in order to carry through with, and that's a donation on that one. So. The family is going to donate it to the town, so we'll be able to preserve a protected waterway. So, and it abuts 2 other parcels that we currently own or manage. So it fills in another hole, you might say. So, we did some more invasive species control at 10 Brookside Drive. That's a real troublesome area. So, and we'll probably have to touch on it again some more. So. We started police patrols on Greater Woods with the intent of educating the public about the things they can and cannot do out there. Also to discourage the improper use of motorized vehicles on some trails that don't allow it. And to get a better handle as to what was going on with the target shooting that was happening on a parcel that at the time we didn't own, but we now do own. So we found that was by funding it through our own fund, it allowed us to have officers out there for a dedicated period of time as opposed to just breezing in for a short period and having to move on. And not what we did here is they spent 4 hours at a time out there, and we tried to structure it on time when it got the most use. I think long term, though, the council may need to be considering how we're going to do those kinds of things for all our parcels and all our properties, and maybe we want to structure the police department in their budget to allow for that as we provide all these opportunities for folks. So just thought I'd drop that in there. So we've initiated the process of a target shooting ordinance. We do have some issues with the new parcels that we purchased, very similar to what we went through with Horse Hill back in 2004, 2003 and 4 and stuff like that. And that's why there is a target shooting ordinance on Horse Hill right now. That's Chapter 128 of the Town Code. We're looking at an update to that. The Commission We'll probably be putting that final version together with the help of Eileen and our town attorney and be bringing that forward to you. More to come. So we've had a joint meeting with the Planning Board over the past year. We also had a joint meeting with the Amherst Conservation Commission. And we continue to actively manage all our parcels and properties. We do that with 3 very capable subcommittees that have been invaluable to the Commission. Those volunteers are terrific. It allows us to continue to do the things that we can do and basically extends our ability to get things done. So we saw lots of improvements in trails and bridges and trail markings this year. We have much more consistent markings across all our properties now. Trail maps and things like that. Again, a lot of the help of the subcommittees in putting that together. And of course, I threw in another link to our website. So, all right. So, as I've done in past years, these are the numbers of the funds that we manage. This is as of the end of the 2014-15 fiscal year, essentially June 30 of 2015. The Special Conservation Fund, the Land Use Change Conservation Fund, both funds established per RSA 36-A, and then the Horse Hill Fund that was put together after the town purchased Horse Hill. Current balances for Fund 51 and Horse Hill are pretty close. The Fund 53 has been reduced. It's in the mid 700,000 range now that we've purchased those parcels out by Greater Woods. So. And then the last part is part of the town budget, the part that's managed by Tim Thompson and his team. It's labeled conservation, but it really handles a lot of the stationary and other support aspects for the Conservation Commission, and then a number of items that the town has chosen to support that are conservation related. So, and you all have big budget books, and I know you can look that number up if you want. So, all right. So goals for 2016, again, continue acquisition mode. And we're trying to take advantage of the fact that prices are down a little bit and that we do have some money that we can leverage. We started this past year looking at land trusts and what land trusts can offer and how we can better leverage our dollars so they can go further. The pipeline, if it does unfortunately come through our town, will probably provide some more monies that we can leverage here. Essentially what we're trying to do is follow what's been outlined in the biodiversity plan and in the town master plan, filling in what we call conservation focus areas around Horse Hill, Greater Woods, and our water systems that we have here in town. We want to continue to provide educational opportunities for the town of Merrimack. It was very exciting to see this past week Matt Kasperius from Parks and Rec reaching out and saying, hey, is there a way we can join up together and do something? I think that's terrific. I'm hoping that we can help support that. So we'll see how that plays out. Of course, the pipeline will continue. It is a marathon. Not unless by some miracle someone puts a stop to it. So we'll continue to work that. I suspect our pipeline activities could become expensive for us simply because of the property that's involved right now if that route gets approved. But I would expect that to be an issue that we'll have to deal with probably not till 17 or 18 anyway. So, but just something to keep in mind. We do want to suggest an update to Chapter 111. I think we really do need some help with that because right now it targets 5 properties. It would be better if we could figure out a way to have a chapter that covered all our properties, and because when you look at all the deeds, they all have different activities that they allow and don't allow, and if we ever needed to enforce that with a police activity, if it's not in the town ordinance or state law, it's really hard to enforce. You kind of have to be creative, or you just hope that when a gentleman with a sidearm and a badge walks up, that they decide that that's probably something they don't want to continue doing. So, not quite sure what help really means, except for if someone wanted to own it, we'd let you. Because we are doing a few other things. So. Again, you'll see the target shooting ordinance coming up. The intent is to cover town, school, and Conservation Commission properties. when I was looking at this slide last night, I realized that Village District wasn't in here. I don't know if that's something we want to consider with them, but they have their own process probably that they want to look at. So just throwing it out there, something to think about. So we do need to expand the Greater Woods Stewardship Plan now that we have more acreage there, and hopefully by the end of the year even more. So you'll be seeing more activity around that. What you'll also see if you've been watching any of our meetings is that a lot of the work that was outlined as activities in Appendix E, is it? Yes. Has been accomplished. We've done lots of things out there. So we're looking at doing an update to Appendix E, and we'll slide that into the plan, and you'll get to see what's been completed and what still has to be done. So if people are wondering what's going on, I think it's a good way to document that. Plus, also outline some new activities that we want to throw in there as well. So since it's we tend to keep that part of the document a living document. So we want to discontinue a portion of South Greater Road and add gates per the stewardship plan. I mentioned this at our last discussion here a year ago. The commission kind of put that on hold this past year as we had the opportunity to purchase those additional acres, and we didn't want this activity to cloud or get in the way of the land purchase. We just felt that it was better to keep the two separate and then work on them. But essentially, we need to do this. We need to do something with this portion of South Greater Road because we have four-wheelers, large Jeep vehicles and things like that, going through a beaver pond basically, and going mudding and having a great time and not doing what they should be doing. So. But we need to have something out there because that's the western portion of our property. If there was a fire, if there was an emergency, we need to have access. So we've improved access to the north part of the property. We've improved access through the middle of the property. And I think you'll be seeing a project to improve access on the western side of the property as well. That way we can support emergency activities, whatever they might be. So, because I'd hate to have someone get hurt out there and not have a way to get out there and work it. So I think it's just prudent of us. So you'll be seeing something more on that. That will require legal activity. It will require an activity of you all to discontinue a road, which is a process or a portion of the road. So more to come. We want to work on our forest management plans and management plans in general for our properties. Again, that was the goal of last year. We want to continue with our water control activities and pick that back up again and hopefully get a beaver management policy update for you all to see. And then, of course, we want to continue to bring more people out on our properties and improve their experience when they visit our properties and help educate them as to the value of the open spaces that we have. Encourage the idea of a staycation, if you want to call it that. So, and of course, our website and processes and all that good stuff. So those are our goals. All right. So where can the council help? I've kind of touched on some of them, but we need help with our purchase approvals and easements and things like that. The town attorney and the firm has been very helpful. You've got a great group of folks there. They're very responsive, knowledgeable, so that's terrific. I'd love to fill our commission, and I don't know how to encourage more volunteerism. All I can say is the more we say it, the more we bring it out. I announce it every meeting we have that we have open spots. There is going to be a winter carnival coming up at Wasserman Park. There should be a billboard there that says, "Hey, if you love your town and you want to participate, here are some opportunities." Maybe put up a little sheet with little things they can tag and rip off with an email address to Becky or someone. But let's take advantage of all those kinds of opportunities whenever the public can be around.
You can be assured that Jody does her job here too.
Yeah,
She's brought it up more than once.
Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, but you come in here, and this is what we want to do, and this is what we need to do. You're probably scaring the daylights out of some of them, okay? And then the reality is, it's not that much. It's a lot of work, but it's not heavy lifting.
Yeah.
It's detail stuff. It's paying attention, like you said. You can put as little time into it or as much time into it as you want, and gradually that stuff will get taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I must tell you, I have a great team here on this commission. We've been able to divvy out different pieces of it. Everyone has their sweet spot of what they like to do, and it works really well that way. So it's not like one person carrying all this, which we had seen in previous instantiations of the commission. So I have a tremendous team behind me, so, and next to me. We brought up GIS before. The GIS system is a tremendous system. The latest updates, the web interface and all that is much better. It's be great to get more layers in there, maybe fix some of the boundary line issues that are in there. The more you can put against that system. At some point, we would like to add some layers to the system, and we've had Gage and others on our team having some discussions with community development about things that we could add to it. So that way you could get a better idea of the conservation areas, and we could start mapping bridges and all kinds of other things and tagging data. It's really a tremendous resource, and we could do a whole lot more with it. So the more you do with it, the more we would like to help. So
We have, what, one more year of payment? Yeah, this year.
Next fiscal year.
yeah, so yes, I highly encourage you to keep doing it.
It's a big
So-
improvement.
Yep. Again, Chapter 111 is really going to need staff support at some point. There's just no way around it. It's just too big. There's too many different pieces. It's going to have to dig up information out of deeds and stuff like that. So if there is an summer intern possibility or anyone that could help out, if we need to help work it with the resources we have, but it would be good to have someone kind of look at that. So, and it's going to require legal help too. So, we're partners. So let's be partners. You appoint us. We're here to keep you happy. Really, the inputs from you, communications you have with other members of our town, all good stuff. So then in closing, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for the support that you have provided and continue to provide. Certainly thank the folks in community development. They do a whole lot. They make certainly my part of the job much easier. They facilitate getting our meeting agendas and things like that out. Not only ours, but our subcommittees as well. They also provide me with lots of information with all the activities we have around land acquisition and other things in the pipeline. They've been very good about providing information. So, and they're timely. They're concerned, and I think they really have a great love for our town. Every one of them down there. So, and it shows in the way they interact with folks. Not only myself, but the applicants that come to in front of us as well. So, and then the media services folks and keeping track of all this and recording all this. They take great pride in what they do. They man the cameras in that other room and move and shift, and you can really see what's going on, which I think is good for folks to see what we're really doing. So, along with, like I mentioned, the legal services, the folks in your office are very helpful. The supporting Dawn and getting our minutes done, tremendous. Dawn does a tremendous job. She does your minutes too, I believe. So. She's someone you certainly need to take care of. She does a great job at keeping the record, and it's nice to be able to skim through the minutes and know exactly what was going on. So that's all I have. Questions?
John?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I just wanted to add in that while you pointed out there's a lot of work you've been doing and there are some things that haven't happened, like the Chapter 111 effort, we can't change the fact that the NED pipeline is just railroaded right through town and taken over most of our anything we consider to be spare time, plus a lot beyond that. I know the town manager's been swamped with it. We've been swamped to some degree with it. You guys have been swamped with it. So I appreciate the amount of work you have done. We'll certainly, from my perspective, we'll certainly continue to try and support all these efforts that you have in your goals, but realize that the pipeline is continue to be up front probably for another year or two. So great job you guys are doing, and thanks so much for that work to all of your team. Thanks a lot.
Any other?
Jody?
First a comment and then kind of a question. And the comment is, I've said to you guys many times, so I hope you know I'm a big supporter of your committee, and I can't say enough about the work that you do because it is an awful lot of work. But off the cuff, my first reaction when I see the continue acquisition mode, not to just be a devil's advocate, but part of me, from being here since 1995, we have so much. So I kind of question, do we really need more? Because I just feel that we have huge parcels, we have great parks, we have just so much, and are we biting off more than we can chew if we take on more? So that's my only concern is when I see continuing acquisition mode, I just kind of question, do we really need any more? But I'll never really micromanage what you're doing because you've just done a great job in doing that. But and then as that tied into where your balance is around 700,000, I would hope that doesn't dip too much. So there's decades of years to come to keep that principle there and healthy to take care of what we got. Because as I've used that mantra with everybody here, with Wasserman Park over the last several years, we've been trying to put money into that place, and keeping the things that we have good is always a priority for me personally. So now the question part. Target shooting. I know there would have been problems there, and we have a target shooting ordinance per se in town already. What specifically are we missing that you think would be good to add to what that we have already?
Okay. So our current ordinance covers one property only, and that's the Horse Hill Nature Preserve. So what we're trying to do is spread it across our other properties. And we're not looking to limit hunting or any of those other legal activities. That's not our intent at all.
And good. That's because I asked the question so people at home and also elsewhere kind of know where you were coming from on that overall issue, too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I consider the hunting thing the elephant in the room, and I might as well put it right out there. So not our intent, never been our intent. It's really to stop careless use of firearms where other people are actually also recreating, trying to do the things that they want to do. And it's really careless what's been going on. Never mind in the target hunting pits, target shooting pits that they've created, they're trashing the place. They're shooting up TVs, which is dropping all kinds of special metals and all kinds of stuff into the ground system.
Not to interrupt you, but they are not stewards of the land, are they, Tim?
No, not at all.
Right?
So, yeah. I mean, a responsible target shooter would make sure they had an appropriate location, they weren't putting anyone else in jeopardy. A round out of a rifle or even a pistol can travel more than 1 mile. So it's just, again, it's carelessness. So we're trying to stop that bad behavior. So, and we believe we need to give our police department the tools they need to enforce that. So, again, we would rather they got educated and got told, this is not the right thing to do here. But if it comes down to a repeated offender or something like that, then we need to do something. So,
You need some teeth.
yeah. So,
I'm just-
if I may,
Certainly.
I appreciate your comment about being good stewards of our fund and stuff like that, and I think we're trying to do that. That's why we're looking at other ways to leverage the money we have, where we could spend $1 and leverage a few more dollars to go with it. We have been kind of acting independently, so we're looking at other ways to do it. So that, and we're really at this point trying to fill in holes. So we're not looking for pieces of land that are islands of themselves. We're looking to fill in holes of areas where we've already protected. So, yeah.
Just to follow up on Dan's, I had a question about philosophically what's the feeling of the commission on using the money for acquisition versus maintenance. So it was a similar kind of thing. At some point, and I don't think the time is now, but at some point, there has to be some thought as to maintaining a certain amount of money for the maintenance for the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the money coming in is almost gone, right? There's no land usage.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to be able to say that would be something on my mind too.
Mhm.
And the filling in, I understand, but I agree with Dan that we have large, wonderful parks and maybe
Yeah.
concentrate on maintaining them rather than expanding them. But
Yeah.
that's just my thought. Jody, you want to say something?
Thanks. I had a couple comments, but to speak to that, and it is a good point, and it's a great discussion to have regarding acquisition of land. But I just, and you and Mike and Matt and Gage and Cindy could speak to this better than I, but it's not, as Tim said, it's not just we're just looking for pieces of land. There are certain parcels of land that have been targeted, some of them for almost 20 years, that
Like the
would
last
complete, like the one at Greater Woods, that would complete a certain parcel of land. There are parcels that have been targeted because of what's on that parcel that would benefit greatly from conservation. And so it's very specific targeting of pieces of land that not to make all of the conservation area in town greater, but to complete what we have and possibly one of the parcels to get rid of, to own the land so that the target shooting no longer happens, because you've still got people out there and they don't know when they're crossing into a privately owned parcel of Greater Woods, and you've got target shooting out there. So it's really a benefit to that parcel and to the people that use that parcel for the Conservation Commission or the town to own it so you can control what happens on it. So it's that kind of thought process, but that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up, Dan, to talk about it. But and I think those are conversations that this commission in particular is very happy to have with the council. So, and that will lead me into my next segue is I'm very, very proud to be part of this commission. It's, and as Tim said, it's a really good team. Everyone has a different strength, a different talent, a different interest that they bring. And I've been on a lot of groups in town, and I've not seen as many work as closely together and complement each other and balance each other like this group does. They do work very hard. I don't want that to scare people away. So you can do what it is that you are good at, and everyone on this commission has a job, a full-time job, and people know that, and you do what you can do. But the Ned pipeline, as Tom stated, it could have totally derailed all the work that this commission was doing this year. And we did take up a lot of our time working on it, but so many other things got accomplished. So I'm really proud of that. It's a fine group of people, and we would love to have more members. I'd also like to give a shout out to the chair, to Tim. Tim's very humble and doesn't like to take a lot of credit, but Tim has worked tirelessly. He's a very effective communicator. I think everyone on the commission will agree with that. He's worked tirelessly in an effort to bring transparency to this commission, and transparency among all of the members of the commission, and transparency with the town administration and the town council. And I applaud his efforts, I support his efforts, and I'm grateful for his efforts. He's also working very hard on documentation, because anyone who knows Tim knows that he does not intend on hanging onto that gavel forever. So it was, when he walked in, there was very little documentation, things written down for the commission to reference. And Tim has worked very hard, and the entire commission's worked very hard at having things documented so that when when Tim steps down and someone steps up to take his place, which we're hoping someone will do at some point in time, that it will be easier for that person. And the communication between community development, too, we're having one central storage place for all the information so that people know where it is. And that wouldn't have happened without Tim. It just wouldn't have. So I just wanted to give him an extra shout out and thank him very much. The town is very lucky to have this group of people, and what wonderful properties we do have. So thank you, Nancy.
John?
Yeah, isn't the gauge of your success the number of problems that are starting to crop up as more people start using the property? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Good point.
it's incredibly ironic in this whole thing. And so I think that, you talked about in your presentation about, having some coordination between the PD and the Conservation Commission and whatnot in order to maintain the usefulness and the desirability of the usefulness of the properties in the area. And I think that one, it speaks volumes to what you have, what the commission over time has put together and developed, especially in the last 6 years. It's just been astounding the amount of work that people have done out there, and the scouts have done out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, those improvements that they put in, those bridges and benches and overlooks and trail work and everything else, is one of the things that really makes this a real, the tremendous asset that it really is. So it's really good, especially when I get a lot of grief from the planning board about sidewalks. There's no place to walk.
Tell them to walk on the trails.
I know. We've been talking about it. We're not as far apart as we think we are. Yeah. Well, when they come in, we'll hear from them. But anyway, that's the thing that I think that is remarkable in the work that the commission has done. I mean, the 2 years that I was the rep, it was as you said, you've done that whole piece on Greater Woods. That whole appendix on Greater Woods. That's astounding. In a 3 or 4 year period. That's terrific. And you did leverage a lot of stuff when you did it to do a couple of those trail renovations and things like that. So, on the one hand, it's the great asset, and on the other hand, it starts to bring along its own issues and problems most of which you laid out here. So, I appreciate what you do and how you do it. If people want to see what teamwork really means and how it works, okay, when you get people who, you don't rely on one person. You go to the guys, you go to each person's strength and work off of that strength, and everybody else just pushes along and gets the job done. It's really great. So, congratulations, and, another good year.
Thanks.
Finley?
I concur with all those accolades that I've heard from a few of us, because it's very true. And I've always known Tim's ability. Once working with him way back in 2006, I was always intrigued. I couldn't do it if my life depended on it. So, but anyhow, I had two quick questions. One, I was just curious what the invasive species was. Is that on Babusick Brook?
Well, we think Babusick Brook is promoting or advancing it. So we've got Japanese knotweed, and then we've got a number of other thorny, I forget what they're all called. So
does it consume the waterway or something?
So we think the waterway is transporting them downstream. So if we don't stop them on Brookside Drive where we are, which is about halfway through our town, they're going to end up just going further down the town. And they just pop up. The Japanese knotweed is pretty obnoxious. It looks like bamboo. It grows fairly tall. It grows very quickly. It grows by cutting off a piece of it and letting that piece go somewhere else and rooting and going further. It doesn't grow by flowers and seeds. So we see it a lot on our roadway. It's a lot on Joppa Road. There's a lot of other places along the Souhegan River. If we've got folks, especially Public Works, going in and chomping them and just leaving them down on the ground, if the wind blows them, we have issues. But I've noticed lately that Public Works seems to be following the BMPs for that very well to try and stop some of that.
Is it an herbicide that you would use like
Well, yeah. So what we had to do, we've had to use as an herbicide in order to stop, because if you pull them out of the ground, the idea is to try and kill them in place, but we don't want to be leaving them next to the brook where they would flow downstream, especially if we had a flood or something like that. And Babusick Brook likes to flood, so we've chosen to use herbicides, something similar to a Roundup or something like that, and just try and knock it down. So.
All right. I was just curious.
Yeah, but it's also invaded other people's properties and stuff like that, and we have a real issue with burning bush as well in a few different places. We have probably 6 to 10 acres of it out in the Wasserman Conservation Parcel. Burning bush that's been there so long that you've got stems like this big now, little stems. You've got some big pieces behind your house.
And a lot of it's on the town right away.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so. But out in Wasserman Conservation Area, it's the biggest burning bush I've ever seen. Just in so much of it, as well as how mature some of those plants are, and they're following a stream, a waterway, the water that comes out of Horse Hill, where the duck pond is, or where people see the geese by the Greens Pond Road and stuff like that. There's water that flows underneath the road, and that forms a stream, which eventually makes it to Green Pond. And right along that whole thing, it just keeps marching along. So,
and then the next question, Tim, is chatted about by Dan, and and others, but I've always anticipated that in the end, when acquisitions were done, and I agree, filling pockets I'm all on board with, generally on board with, I guess. Greater areas, I'm not into that, and it sounds like that's not the plan anyhow. I'm always imagining that fund will have enough in it so that the investments, as low as they may be today or whatever, will be enough to cover the maintenance of it. So I'd love to see enough in that account to be able to do that in the end. So I guess my question is, do you have an idea, and I know things can wash out trails or whatever, and it might cost a little more one year than the other, but do you guys have an idea, have you contemplated what maintenance costs might be annually for our properties combined in the end?
As a commission, we have not had that discussion. So I've been, because I'm a numbers type person, some of you know that, I've been tinkering with some numbers and stuff like that. But I think we spend somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a year on maintenance activities, building bridges and improvements and stuff like that. I think that's about right. So, you know, that number, keeping that at a healthy place is really important to us. And I really think what you'll see this year with the items that I listed, that we're actually going to be able to leverage only tens of thousands of dollars and pick up hundreds of acres, because we have willing participants in our donation and acquisitions. So, I don't think we're really going to be depleting that fund. In what I really expect, I talk about 120 acres, but there's another 30 or so acres out there that look to be coming our way as well. So, so.
Thank you. If that's in the back of people's mind, that's really good, and I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I think we as a team, value what the town has given us and don't want to squander it. I mean, we do deliberate. Sometimes people might say, well, you just spent $1,000 there, $1,000 there, but what we've provided is great opportunities by improving this or rerouting something that was damaging a wetland or something like that. So.
Thank you, and thanks to the commissioning committees.
And that's why I show you the numbers every year. I want you to see what we're doing.
Transparency.
Yeah. Just so that way, if you really get concerned, don't hesitate. We're partners here. Say, hey, what you doing? So, and of course, all our acquisitions that they do provide money, so they all have to be approved by you, so you know what's going on. So, yeah.
Yes, John.
Just two more things. One on the land acquisition. Most of the stuff that you were looking at when I was on there wasn't what I would call prime developable land.
No, not at all.
It's just, it's hard scrabble. Some places hard scrabble stuff, and other places it's habitat. That just doesn't lend itself to that kind of development. So we're not, 10 or so years ago, I got concerned about how much land was being chewed up in these kinds of acquisitions. And I was concerned that, as Will Rogers said, by land they're not making any more. And I was concerned that how that might impact the overall affordability of the community. The work that you've been doing in acquiring the properties hasn't, put my mind at rest on that particular issue. So it's not something that you're going out there and trying to do, that's going to be a bad choice in the end as to what you might want to do with the land. The other thing is on those plants and invasive species. When your Aunt Matilda gives you that dish garden and it dies, don't throw it in the vacant lot down the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
Is there a drop-off box at the PD?
No, we can make it for them. We can do it here for the Conservation Commission.
Don't fertilize your lawn, cut the grass, and throw the clippings in that vacant lot next door either.
Yeah.
We don't need any more of that stuff washing into our waterways. So.
And that's on that particular parcel that you're talking about. That's part of the problem, is that everybody was using that in the area was using it as a dump for all their vegetation, rather than dragging it down and putting it on the brush pile of the transfer station, where it would get chewed up by the microbes and whatever, and and stuff in the compost pile.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I'm done.
Okay, in conclusion, I think, I've said this before on other occasions, but I'll say it again here. You know, we have our own opinions, but I think the Conservation Commission has to appreciate the fact of how much the citizens of Merrimack appreciate what you do. That's the bottom line. It's not just us. It's a matter of how much time, and we're telling the community, helping them understand how valuable you all are. So thank you very much from them. Okay. Okay. You are released.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yes, Dan.
As a side note, for the last, been here 5 years, going into 6 years, I've really read 3 really big, impressive reports. One came out early 2000s or late 90s with solid waste. Fields Needs Report in Greater Woods. Out of those, 2 out of 3, he was the author of. I just thought that was a little interesting.
Not surprised.
And I always fall back on the Charter Commission, and he and
Yeah.
Tom Mahon here were just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was the best minute reviewer anyone would. You think you do a good job, Bill? Yeah, I know. It made the rest of us really lazy.
You have to read it.
Thank you very much. Okay, public hearing. In consideration of changes to Town of Merrimack and the Charter. Yvette, you want to come up just for both of you? Jennifer? We're not going to ask you to go read everything. I know this. What? I'm going to do it in a minute. Okay, we're not going to go through all this, but I'm going to ask you to come up. So after you open and close, you'll be there if there's any questions. That's all.
Sounds good.
The Town Council to hold a public hearing to consider the acceptance of recommended changes to Charter Article Roman numeral 6, Section 6-2, colon B. Library trustees of the Town of Merrimack Charter pursuant to RSA 49-B, colon 5. Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing at 8:12. And does the public have anything to question or say? Well, I should at least wait a minute, shouldn't I? Yes.
We kind of have to tell them what they're doing. And basically, what the library wants to do is they want to add alternates
Thank you.
to be able to have up to 3 alternates to their trustees, to add to their trustee board. In case a voting member is not there, one of the alternates could step in. And that's what this charter article is doing for the library. Amendment.
Is there anything you want to add to that summary?
I think
Pretty
that's
much
good.
it?
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Okay. Based on that quick summary, thank you very much, Paul. Yes, Judy?
Is it, just people get a general understanding of what, is it you're lacking quorum often, or what kind of issues would this address, adding these members that would help out the library trustees? That might be helpful for people to know.
Sure. As of late, no, we haven't had issues with quorums. In the past, there have been, unfortunately, a couple of deaths of trustees, and then we'd have to wait to fill those positions. People have resigned during their terms. So last year at election time, we had a little bit of interest in people joining us, but they wanted a little more information, and it would be nice to have a position where somebody could maybe join us as an alternate for a year, kind of get a little bit of that under their belt before they put their name in on a ballot.
Excellent. Okay, based upon that additional knowledge, is there any public input? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to the council in a minute. I'd like to close the public hearing at 8:14. Now, open to the count, right? These public hearings always mess me up. Now we open up for the council discussion, then a vote, right? Okay, Tom?
Thank you.
Wanna say something?
I guess I might have wanted it the other way around, just in case we had questions or explanations on that might rouse public input. But I'm curious on 3 alternates appointed by the council. How many members are on the board right now?
5. The
5.
reason we went with 3 is that's what the state RSA allows for.
Uh-huh. So does the state RSA also point out 5 members on the board, or?
I believe so.
I'm just
have it
curious.
here.
Because theoretically, you could have a majority of your council if you appointed all 3 of your alternates would be appointed by the council as opposed to elected by the people. And I'm just philosophically wondering if that number makes sense. You know, whether it would be appropriate to have 2 appointed by the council, or whether you feel like you need 3 because you might have situations where you need all 3 to show up in order to have a quorum, which means only one of the elected people showed up, or something to that effect.
I don't see it stipulated that there's 5 members. Do you read that?
No, but I think individual towns, or each individual, I don't know how they decide actually, but I know not every library in New Hampshire has 5 like we do. Some are bigger, some are smaller. I think it's dependent on the population. Something that makes sense.
No, it's not.
Okay, then I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but it's not dependent on, I don't think there's any board size at the municipal level that's dependent on the population of the community to determine how many people sit on the on the main board. So that's not it. It's probably a choice that was made years ago by the voters as to how many people they thought were prudent to have on the library trustees. Okay. The other, if I may, you done, Tom?
Yeah, no, I was just throwing out that thought for that comment for thought as to whether there ought to be a greater than a majority potentially of alternates, or whether there should be just under, stopping at 2.
We just chose it because just for continuity.
Because that's the limit that they allow.
Right.
Yeah, the planning board has 3. CBA has.
They have 6 members, but yeah.
Yeah. So.
Do alternates vote, or do they have a vote?
No.
No.
They don't.
No?
Only if they're
Only.
appointed to sit
Only if
in
they're
place
appointed.
of somebody who's missing.
Okay. Because if I could get my 2 cents, I'm looking at more as a training grounds, the wrong term, but if there's 3 alternate, it gives them, the people who maybe think about doing it and then put their name on, that's to the alternate part, as long as they had the power to vote on the board, I'm more comfortable. But I kind of like the suggestion of it gives them a pool of future players in a way. But,
And I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but it just seems philosophically that
Right.
maybe 2 would be a better number. But,
right.
But I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not going to change my life.
I think I would have cared if the answer was they could vote. Then I would thought maybe that might have. They can vote.
In place,
When they're appointed.
Only if they're appointed.
Only if
to
they're appointed.
Fill for somebody.
If we
Okay.
don't have a quorum, they can step in and vote.
On any given meeting, on any given month, there was no rules about, okay, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
and you know, like on
Just like the planning board.
the planning board, somebody's coming in late
Yeah.
rather than slow up the whole
Okay,
thing.
all right.
You're appointed for so-and-so, and then so-and-so walks in, and as soon as we complete that piece of business, then the regular member takes over. There's several issues here. One is you don't state a term, how long they're going to be appointed for. So I think,
Okay. Yeah, that's, in the state RSA, it's 1-year term. And in our bylaws, it's actually, I believe, a 1-year term as well.
For the appointed alternates.
No, we don't have a term in our bylaws, but the state RSA says shall be appointed to 1-year terms.
That's RSA 202A:10.
Correct.
Okay. So you're referencing it there.
So anyway, that's one piece of it. I think that, this hasn't been reviewed by, it has. He did, oh, okay. I'm sitting around, wait a minute.
At how
Legal-
much an hour?
Legal counsel.
Right, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah. When
Okay,
When
so in
a-
accordance with RSA 202A10, covers the 1-year issue,
covers the 1 year.
covers the appointment, God, 1 year.
Every year we'd be appointing 3
Yeah, we gotta
people
come back.
over and over again.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's murder,
Well, life.
but that's the way they wrote it. So, You got to live with it. Okay. Almost.
Any questions on this?
No, I was just going to, I was just going to repeat Tom Koenig's point of, I think it was his concern that an appointed majority could do the business that an elected majority should otherwise. And so I can't imagine it being a problem, but
I
that
really
was a
can't
concern.
either, but it is a mathematical fact that you could do
Right.
that with three, so
You could do it with two. If 4 people don't show up and you only have 1 elected member, 2 get appointed, so therefore you'd have 2 council appointees serving as
Which is
alternates.
why he's suggesting, I think, that 2 may have been the better number, but
yeah, technically you could do that, I guess.
Well, the problem is if only 2 people show up, they don't have a quorum to call the meeting to order.
Well, I already said that there was 1 elected member there, so it would be a minimum of 3, which is a quorum, that's all.
Well, but do they need to call a member before they can appoint the alternates?
I mean, that's another question.
That's a good question.
all right, I'm good with what it is.
I think we got muddy enough, let's just go forward.
Okay, based upon that muddying,
Thanks.
can we now, yes, Jody? Just as long as it's not mud.
Well, it's adding to the mud. If there were only 2 instead of 3, would that be a concern or an issue or a problem for you? I'm just saying, and it makes sense. I can't imagine that there's going to be, but you'd never say never. So if Tom wanted to change it to 2, I would support that as well. Because what he's saying does make sense to me. So I'm okay with it either way, but I understand Tom's argument, and I think it's a valid one.
I don't think we'd have any objection to that. We just tried to do it for continuity, and I think we'd be extremely lucky if we had a line of people who wanted to be alternates. So,
Fighting over the 2 versus
Yeah.
3.
It's only for a year.
yeah.
Okay, any pleasure? No? Yes,
I think legal counsel wrote it, and it said 3, and I think the library trustees changed it to up to 3 when they wrote it, when they voted on it. They wrote the words up to in there, but I think our legal counsel said 3 alternates. So they did change it up to 3.
yes.
I was going to say something similar to that was that the attorney had a number in mind, and the other thing occurred to me is it's a big change in the sense that it's big because it has to go on the charter change. So we'll just make sure we do it right the first time, because it's so rare that we have a charter change to begin with. So, well,
The 5th or 6th one.
over 10 years.
Yeah. That's almost,
It's only because it's a relatively new document. We've had to clean up a few of the mistakes.
And it's been,
anyway.
yeah, but
So
That's
I'm
all.
I'm okay leaving it, by the way. I don't have a strong urgency to change it to 2.
The only thing that, I mean, Tom, when he said it out loud, 1-year terms, the appointment is a little bit of is a little bit of a, the appointment process is a little bit of an effort sometimes, and so if that could be added in, that it might be for whatever, all the other, I mean, the planning board is 3 years, I believe, is it not, for alternates?
But what you're saying is the
Yeah,
state
but if
says it
The
has to.
state
It
already
has to
says
be
1
that?
year.
yeah,
well, that's what
statute.
they're
Okay.
referencing.
Okay.
They're referencing that statute.
All right.
See, so somebody in the legislature didn't trust them either to try and overwhelm the board, so they only made it for 1 year. I'm not saying the present company accepted.
Included.
So question,
Yes.
as it relates to process, when it comes to enacting ordinances, everything goes to a second and a final reading. Since this is a charter amendment, does it follow the same protocol?
No. Council votes on it. It goes back to legal for review. Diane Trippett, the town clerk tax collector, then has to send it to the Attorney General, DRA, and Secretary of State. They review it. They give their blessings. Goes on the ballot. The people vote yay or nay. They vote yay. It's enacted. They vote nay. No. Reverts back to what it is in the original charter.
So to follow up, does our vote go on the ballot that will say the town council recommends approval, like you see with some of the
It
other?
is not a money article, so the town council's recommendations
Will not be.
are not included.
Okay.
Yet it's needed to go forward.
But it's needed to go forward.
Yeah. Or they
So-
could petition it,
Well,
enforce it.
we're not,
Oh,
we may not necessarily be recommending the article, we may be just putting it out
Allowing
there
it.
to see if the voters want to do anything with it.
So based on what Paul's communicated, what is an appropriate motion?
To move to the,
Vote in favor of, to consider the acceptance of recommended changes, right? To move it forward.
Move forward in the process.
Okay, Madam Chair, I would move that the town council move forward the recommended changes to Charter Article Roman numeral 6, Section 6-2, B in parentheses, Library Trustees of the Town of Merrimack Charter pursuant to RSA 41-B:5.
49.
49-B:5. Thank you, Tom.
Second?
second.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, second by Tom Mahan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, 700.
Thank you.
Thank you very
It's
much,
under Roman
ladies.
numeral, it's under Roman numeral
Thank
5B,
you.
5 small b, within 7 days after the last public hearing.
Does it need to be amended, the motion?
No.
No, okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Legislative updates from state representatives. Seeing one here.
Fanfare.
Representative Barry. Pleasure to see you.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, I am Dick Barry from Merrimack, state rep. I believe the last time I was here, the budget was still in limbo. The governor had vetoed it, and they were working on the previous budget. So we'll talk about finances for a little bit. The House and the Senate overrode that budget, so overrode her veto. So now the budget is in play. There were a whole bunch of things that went on. I think when I was here before, I told you we were doing several meetings to take care of problems that the veto of the budget caused, and we're addressing those both in law and in statute. I'll put it that a little differently. A couple of things that we're doing. Oh, let me give you a brief one. The CAFR isn't ready yet. Consolidated Annual Financial Report. Is that the correct terminology? That should, please?
Comprehensive annual financial report.
Comprehensive. And I
Yeah.
always, one is consolidated.
I did 12 of them, so that's why I know.
I failed that course, but that's all right. They put me in finance anyhow. That should be out tomorrow. We kind of know what it's going to look like. We expect that the budget, the spending from last year will be to the point where we have about a $10 million surplus. And that's about what we thought was going to happen. When you think of it in perspective, year-to-date revenues for general and education are $870 million, about 4% ahead of plan. But when you look at $10 million out of 8 and 8, 16, 17, about a $2 billion total budget for the year. That's nothing. If you had that percentage in your checkbook, you'd be in trouble. Having said that, there are several bills in the works and several things in front of the Finance Committee. I happen to be on the Fiscal Committee, which meets monthly and takes in accounts where people say, I need more money for name tags, or I need more because it wasn't in the budget, or I'm going to move some money around. And because I see the $10 million surplus, they all seem to be about $10 million. I guess, surprise, surprise. Some of us would like to see that surplus in the $80 to $90 million range, and we're probably digging in our heels. And you have your hand up?
Go right ahead.
Sure, you
I
can
was just
interrupt me
wondering-
anytime you want.
I was just wondering if that is in this year's anticipated surplus for the year or the cumulative for the
Thank
entire
you.
fund?
Let me be clear. The CAFR is for the last budget. So the ending of was it June 31st. As of June 31st, we expect to have had $10 million surplus, which is a previous fiscal year. It's not even that good to be really bad. Trust me.
Yeah, we have about $5 million for the town.
Well, and that's it. I mean, when you look at our budget and what we're doing, we are. I won't tell you how much I had to cut out of Health and Human Services from what the governor's budget was, because it's probably more than what your budget is. But that's not what I just want to give you an overview that we're back on the increased budget. The budget that the governor vetoed was about a 5.5% increase over the previous one. We did allow the state employees pay raises to go through. We took care of that. She did not want the business tax cuts to be considered, and she lost on that one. So those are the two big ones that got in there. Since then, you've probably read in the papers that how do I put the wording? The opioid crisis has escalated. I mean, we've always had a problem with opioids, and there were, if you've read the papers, a whole bunch of meetings that went on, the several bills. The Senate had some public hearings. They can process bills differently than we can. They held public hearings last week on several of these bills that we wanted to fast track through to get them in. Something like saying that fentanyl is going to be as bad. The penalty for using fentanyl is bad as using heroin. I mean, it's considerably more powerful. It's what's really hurting the people. And we're allowing prescription pharmacists to go ahead and prescribe Narcan. I forget the real name for it.
Naloxone.
Naloxone. Thank you. I appreciate that. So those are kind of givens. There's several things where people want to spend money to provide treatment services, beds. And I think the last time I was here, I was talking about the Sununu Center, where they have, it's a 144-bed facility. It's for kids under 18 that have been in the system for 4 or 5 or 6 times, and a judge finally says, we need to have you not locked up, but in a real secure facility. The census in there has been somewhere between 45 and 50, and it's 144. So we are looking at ways to. It's still one of the bills is to go through, and my preference is that we bring in outside people who handle that kind of a problem today. Look at the Sununu Center and say, how can we best utilize this facility? Whether it be we shut it down and do something somewhere else, where somebody else comes in and takes over and manages the kids and then expands it to other psychiatric research, rehabilitation and treatment facility, those combinations of things. So we're trying to do that. You'll see a lot of activity on the opioids and how we do it. If you ever get a chance to ride in a police car at night, I'd do it. I would go and just see what that's like. In terms of bills, I noticed you just had the Conservation Commission, and there is a bill in to impact LCHIP, Land Community Heritage Improvement Program, and it's not just LCHIP, but there's one specifically on LCHIP that says stop it from being a dedicated fund and put it into the general funds. The issue is that we have 136 dedicated funds, and we have this language that says it shall go to this specific area. But when you've only got $10 million to play with, they go to find whatever they can we try to find money somewhere, and these funds either get raided or the money doesn't get put into them. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. That just is a duck in the back of the head, and I'll try to let Tim know what's going on. On a different kind of a note, we had a meeting this morning with all the chairs and vice chairs, the speaker, the clerk of courts, and the staff up there. One of the things that came out is interesting in that they want us to be a kinder, gentler operation. I mean, you get 400 people up there, and sometimes they get a little testy. Let me put it that way. And it's okay if you're going to be testy with a fellow state rep who's coming to introduce a bill and hasn't got their facts straight, or one of the orange badges who are the lobbyists, and they're in there and you're asking them for information, and oh yeah, sure, I'll get you that. Well, until you give me that, then I'm not going to take your. But when the general public comes in and they've got an issue and they want to talk to the state reps or to or the Senate, you want them to feel comfortable so that they can say what they want to say, how they want to say it. And there have been some times when some of the chairs haven't been as cordial and inviting as so if you've seen somebody that's gone up there and is uncomfortable, tell them to come on back. Even better, tell them to come see me, and I'll make sure they can go in and sit down with a chair ahead of time and feel comfortable, because we're looking for people to testify.
You're talking about at those hearings, the various hearings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any of the public hearings. Public's welcome to come up anytime. I got into that last night with the Business and Industry Association, and we want businesses to come up and tell us what it is we're doing right and wrong, and how we can go forward. And sometimes we disagree, and I had a couple of disagreements last night, but one was with the real businessman, one was with the orange badge. But we're trying to do that and do it better. There's several bills going through, several study committees. Part of my job here would be to ask you if you wanted an update on something that you saw, you watched, you heard, and I can get it. If I know it, I'll tell you. If I can't, I'll get back to you. And anybody but Eileen, she gets the NHMA.
No, we don't belong to them.
You don't belong to them.
So, what I wanted to know, this is probably not the proper place to you're not might be the person to ask, but we are looking for money, around $10 million. No, we're looking for money to build a boat ramp on the Winnipesaukee, Sorry. I haven't done that. On the Merrimack River, and we have matching funds, but we would like to see if there's some kind of fund or agency that might be able to have some matching funds for us. And you might not know off the top of your head, but if you could just research that.
Environmental Services does have funds that they work with. They have federal funds. They have some state funds. They have some private funds. Your timing might be bad because they were yesterday. We heard a bill that there's several towns that have had wastewater treatment plants and clean water treatment plants, and they get federal funds and state funds and some other matching funds. And because we didn't have enough money, we haven't paid some of them. So they're looking for more money than you're looking for. But it certainly wouldn't hurt. But I don't know the person off the top of my head at Department of Environmental Services, but that's a group to go through. If you get stuck and you want me to, I mean, I know the commissioner, but you don't want to start with them.
Why not, actually?
Why not?
Now that you mention it.
He and I are old buddies. When he first started working for them, 1979 or So he and I were battling a
1879.
yeah, 1979.
With your knickers? No.
Yeah, he and I.
The current commissioner?
Burak, right?
I don't know. He's the current commissioner. I don't know if he's been there since '79.
He's been there a long time. Not as
However,
commissioner.
He's a commissioner.
He was a skinny kid like me back in those days, and we were dealing with a private landfill over in Pelham. So,
Is he the one that came out to Councilor Dwyer's property and He's not the one from the DES that came out and said.
The name doesn't sound familiar.
no, he doesn't do that anymore.
Jody?
But that's where I would go if I were you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Over the years, my involvement in local government, you've always been one of the state reps that comes and visits the local elected officials and shares information, and when requested, has gone back and gotten information and gotten back to me, and I really appreciate your continued willingness to communicate. What you're talking about behaving badly is you're talking about decorum, and I think there are some representatives, there is always local government, that sometimes people need to be reminded that they're elected to represent the people in the town where they live, and that's what they've been elected to do. So, and disagreeing respectfully is something that I always support and I always look for in an elected official. And to me, it just should just be a given. And I'm very happy to hear that there's efforts to change the culture, because when you have children or other interested constituents going up to the State House to testify and they're treated the way they're treated, that's just unacceptable. So I'm happy to hear you say that. I don't know that you're going to have information, but I don't have the House bill numbers. I didn't know you were coming tonight. Otherwise, I would have been prepared. And if you want me to get you that information, I'd be happy to after the meeting, later in a couple days. But I know there are several House bills moving forward that pertain to issues that the towns are facing pertaining to the pipeline. And I'd be very interested in hearing what the Merrimack State reps, what their positions are, how they interpret those bills, and if they've got an opinion about how they're going to vote. And I also wanted to let you know that I understand that some of the state reps, Jack Flanagan is one of them, the sponsors of these bills, are going around to the different affected towns and sharing information. And you might even get an invitation. I heard that there's some hopes that they may come to Merrimack, and the state reps might get an invitation from those state reps to discuss and get some information pertaining to those bills. So I don't know what information you have on them tonight, if you need for me to get you information to take back. I just want to make sure that at least there's some discussion that those bills are present, they're moving forward, they're going to be voted on, and they could affect Merrimack and how this pipeline comes through greatly. So that is a very big issue here in town, and I'm hoping that our state reps are hearing the people of Merrimack and what it is we're asking for on that issue. Thank you, Dick.
Sure. Let me answer your question directly and then obtusely, if I may. Directly, I'd be glad to take a look at the House bills and the numbers and let you know the status of them. And they're all on the website, and it's not something that I'm going to add any value to between now and then. And obtusely, whatever you see on there today is more than likely not what's going to get voted on, and when it gets voted on, it'll at that session is when we will know. I do know personally that most of the reps are strongly in support. You might see a sign out in front of my house once in a while, but yeah, we know that there's an issue. The thing I keep trying to get at is show me the numbers. You're telling me there's going to be a lot of gas come through the pipeline and it's going to reduce the energy costs. Show me the numbers. I want to see a plan, or at least something we can tie in, and don't just show me going forward that it's this. Show something that's happened in other areas where the numbers are. I've asked that, and I've asked that of the head of Science and Technology Committee in the House to use that as they go through. So to me, that's a thing. The other thing you all know is that what you have done is pretty good up to the point. You haven't yet got to the point where you said there's no way in hell you're coming through here, and you probably can't do that. But the other thing is we learned on the planning board that I was on for a couple of weeks. You can't stop something from coming through, but you can identify the places where it can go through and will mitigate it, and you've done some of that. I don't know how you tie that in with the surrounding communities, or how we get to the point we build a wall.
But these bills aren't, are you in support of or are you in opposition to the pipeline? They deal with specific things like the tariffs and other issues that we'll be facing if this pipeline goes through. So I'll be sure to get you the exact numbers so that you can, because in my opinion, from just some of the language that I've read, and I haven't read every single one, but it would support Merrimack should this pipeline go through these bills. So they're very important to the town, and I don't believe any of them say, are you in support of or against the pipeline? It's not as black and white and clear cut as that. They address specific issues that Merrimack would face should this go through, but I'll be sure to get that information to you, Dick.
Thank you.
Yeah, you were talking about, the quorum issues. I from my experience over the last couple of years in dealing with toll issues and...
Did you say quorum issues or a couple of issues?
Decorum.
Decorum.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Decorum.
Yeah. Talking to toll bills and the 10-year plan and the commuter rail issues. I've comparing to what I saw in the late 80s and what I've been seeing there lately is a very marked difference in expertise, knowledge, and the way they apply it. Okay, and it's in my opinion, it was a very good experience from that standpoint. They didn't agree with me on a lot of those issues, but they were
Demonstrated respect.
Yeah, well they did that before, but some of the stuff I used to hear come out of their mouths when I was in there testifying on other bills, you just sit there and go, what? They had no clue. Now they're very well briefed. They've studied a lot. They learned their response. They learned what they needed to learn in order to make an informed decision, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so from that standpoint, I think it's a much more favorable change in the way they used to operate 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I just found it a lot easier to work, to present my information and answer their questions and move on,
Thank you. I'll bring that back to leadership. It's not something I did, trust me.
No.
I'm not a kind of.
I just, whoa.
Also,
good.
I think, let me, if I may, I think the electorate is starting to pay a little bit more attention. You recognize that we have about a third turnover, about 1/3 of the state reps turnover every session. And you don't have many that last more than 2 terms. And had I known what I had to go through this year, I probably wouldn't have gone in again. I think I missed 3 weeks all year long. It's been an interesting time. But what is it? The Chinese epithet?
May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
I used that quote last week.
If it weren't for my damn short-term memory loss, I probably wouldn't go back.
But you keep on forgetting. Okay. Nothing else.
But,
Well,
but seriously, do you find something specific?
Yeah.
I don't mind coming in and, sitting down and ad-libbing, but I'm afraid that I'm misusing your time. I don't want to waste your time, but if you've got something, as Councilor Valancourt has, and anything else that's going on, please, I'll do it, or
keep that in mind.
you got the education guys, we got quite a team up there that's
Right.
from Merrimack. You get some people in some power, so leverage it is what I guess what I'm saying.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Representative
Thanks,
Barry.
appreciate it.
Okay, Town Manager's Report. Eileen.
Okay, very quickly. The library is holding several tech drop-in sessions for people who would like help becoming more familiar with their new electronic devices they have received as gifts. No registration is required. The library's midwinter book sale is January 30th and the 31st. With a Friends of the Library members only pre-sale after hours on the 29th of January. The Citizens Police Academy begins next Wednesday. There are a few spaces left. For more information, contact Officer Robert Kelleher at 424-3774. Don't forget, now that winter is here, to clean up your cars before driving. Not only is it the right thing to do, it is the law. Thank you.
That includes trucks.
Clean the top of your cars. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago at the planning board, the owners of a property over on Tinker Road came in to have a subdivision declared on the two pieces of the property that was split by the reconstruction of Tinker Road when they built Continental Boulevard. Okay. And it appears that the state still owns about 200 or 300 feet off of Continental Boulevard. And we were curious as to whether or not that had ever been reverted back to us, or whether that is really state property. I don't know whether Tim was bird dogging that afterwards, or Tim Thompson was going to bird dog that or not afterwards, but that came up as who owns that. You know, the state owns it. Well, who plows it? I said, we do, as far as I know. So it's that open field area off to the one side of Continental Boulevard where Tinker Road crosses. State was supposed to build it in one place. They built it in another place, split that property in half, and they came in the other day to have those declared as two separate lots. Okay. No. The owners of the property did, and the ownership of the road was in question.
It appears that Gina has something to say about that, but she can wait to the end.
You can invite her up.
Go ahead.
That's up to you.
Do it now. You have to come up. Since you seem to have some knowledge about what Tom's talking about.
That area is where the pipeline's planning on going through. That's the 30-foot peat bog
Yeah,
that the pipeline's going through.
Right.
So just so you know.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, shall we move on? All set?
Thank you.
There is no consent agenda. Old business submitted by Town Councilor Dan Dwyer, but I'm sure the report's going to come from Paul McCallie. This is an intermittent report that has been asked. Follow up from the November 5th meeting. Town Council to review the total cost of legal fees paid to date in association with the proposed Kinder Morgan pipeline project. Paul? Or Eileen? Either one of you.
To date, we have paid our legal counsel for Kinder Morgan related issues, $65,983. Conservation Commission paid $38,238 for the projects at Horse Hill and Gilmore Forest. Those projects are complete.
Any questions from anyone for this? Thank you for the update, Paul. Yes. Charlie.
Clarity, you said that was to date, but that number is through November?
The numbers
So-
through November, we haven't got our December billing yet.
Right. Have we anticipated that we've spent very much in December, or?
It all depends on, it depends on how much of the FERC filings and things occurred that she did behind the scenes to review.
Okay, thanks.
One of the things that she does is she keeps abreast of what's going on in the FERC filings. She doesn't read every single thing, but she's on the list and things pop up, to see if there's anything that's relevant that we need to know about. But I believe that once the intervenor status begins, that period ends and that docket goes away, and then it becomes something
new
else.
docket.
Yeah.
Okay. All set. Okay, let's move on to the next item, number 2. Request to tap maple trees in Westman Park. This I'm going to table because a question has come up about this particular piece of land, this site, whether it's owned by Conservation Commission or us. So until we get a read on that, because that will determine if it's overviewed, if it's viewed by the Conservation, then this applicant should go to them. So until we have that clarified, so I'm tabling it for now, and we have contacted the applicant and just told him that we are investigating it as soon as there's a determination made, if it's to contact the Conservation Commission or to return to us. Okay?
No.
Okay.
There's also declaration of restrictive and protective covenants and a project agreement and things that the Conservation Commission has forwarded for review
So we
before any discussions are had with this gentleman.
Right. And you and I had great minds think alike moment. When this came up, I remember, and I think both of you guys were, I don't know who it was. When we did Wasserman, there was a guy who had requested, okay. So I asked Becky to pull the minutes from, someone had requested this, so I said, there's been a precedence. This was before there was a question on who owned it. And what kind of procedure and what kind of determination did we make then? So that was pulled as well. So depending upon who should be the decision makers here, will determine probably if we have to do it, then we have some backup information in terms of precedence.
We could still get those minutes, right? Because I
Correct.
have a feeling a request like that will be coming forward again.
Is it already included?
I thought they were in the packet.
Well, not from the date that Bill was talking about.
Now, you're talking about a different,
There was a request that came before the council a couple of years ago regarding the tapping of birch trees over adjacent to Kids Cove.
okay, that was when I was absent, so.
I don't remember that one. The one I was contemplating, I thought was on Horse Hill.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
Well, that's the one that's in here.
In here,
Right.
right. That's what I thought. I didn't know.
But this was,
I didn't know
the-
it one.
there was a gentleman,
Birch or
Birch.
spruce or?
it was birch. It was,
Not spruce, but.
it was
West
birch
Side,
trees.
that's what it was.
Yeah, I remember something about that.
It was a
Okay.
couple of years, it was a couple of years ago.
So until, in the meantime, they can get that information, but we can't deal with any of it until we know, okay?
Do you need a
So that is
motion?
being tabled. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
Who's working on that? Who's chasing that down?
As far as the minutes are concerned, Becky's, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
The ownership of the land.
The attorney is looking into that. and I guess it would be the assessing office.
Okay.
Tim did supply
There's-
some information as far as he knew.
There's something
But it needs to be
complicated about it.
validated,
There's easements or
L-chip
something.
Yeah, there's covenants and.
Covenants and
agreements
easements
all that
and-
other stuff.
Yeah, but on
Things-
half versus half, and it should be fairly easy to tell where that line is. I don't understand why it's complicated.
Yeah.
The line of who owns, who, I mean, obviously to the right of that driveway, as you're going in, the town is responsible for Wasserman Park. And
No,
I thought we had, to the left of it, as far as that parking lot, we also were responsible for, and that the line for conservation was from the parking lot over to the very far end of the property. And this is clearly in the parking lot area, so it's just a question of whether that conservation land also jumps out and grabs that little rectangle there.
Right.
Right.
I would have thought that was fairly clear, but maybe not.
Well, Tim did have questions. He thought, but he also made the point, he thought it was L-chip?
Yes.
Reimbursed as well, L-chip? But wasn't sure. Thought so, and wanted verification. So that's, until that verification happens, I thought we should just table it until we know for sure. Okay? And we don't need a motion for that, right? We do? To table?
Move the table to request to tap maple trees in Wasserman Park.
To a date certain, or?
Until we receive the information from the attorney
There you go.
interpreting the
Ownership of the land.
ownership of the land and the covenants and restrictions that may have been placed on the land.
Good motion.
Second.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, second by Tom Koenig. Any other, Finley?
I just would hope that the attorney moves swiftly, I'm not a tapper of trees of any sort, but I'm imagining that there's, timing. I'm looking forward to spring, and I'm believing it's right around the corner. So I don't want it to drag on, and because I don't know what our outcome will be for this gentleman, but I think it should be handled in a manner.
Carrie Ann's on it, so
Great.
she's
Okay.
good.
Sweet. Good.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions? Did you want to speak to it, Tom? You're all set?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none? 700. To table with all of that verbiage. Okay, 2, donation acceptance for Parks and Recreation Department Scholarship Fund. Matt's not here, so I'm assuming Paul and Eileen are going to take care of it.
Move to accept the donation
Okay.
of $780 from Merrimack Friends and Family on behalf of the Natticook Camp Scholarship Fund.
Second?
Motion made by Tom Mahan, second by Dan Dwyer. Any discussion? Seeing, yes.
I just wanted to quickly point out that Merrimack Friends and Family do a lot of this type of thing. And I don't remember how long they've been in existence. I would think it's 15 years anyhow, and they've done tons.
At least 25.
Is it that? See, what do I know? But they
Hot dog
definitely.
flies.
They weren't called that back then, but they were.
Well, okay, I
That's
didn't know they
right.
were the same. I remember.
Yeah, it used to be
Welcome
Welcome Wagon,
Yeah.
now it's Friends and Family.
So anyhow, they do a lot of good stuff, so I appreciate that, and I know that will be passed on. Thank you.
Thank you, Finley.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 700. Okay, last on new business, first quarter financial report by Paul McCauley. We'll review the key financial information of the quarter ending September 30th, 2015. Thank you. Don't ask me. It's not fair. Ask me if it was cold in here. I'm the person to ask.
All set.
Okay, time to pay attention again. You're all
Good-
set?
Yes, good evening. Come before you tonight to discuss the first quarter of fiscal year 2015-16, and the key points that we look at: health insurance, retirement, overtime, and revenues. For the first quarter of 2015-16, we're spending about $10,000 more in health insurance for the town. That's due. We did have a little bit of an increase from our 14-15 to 15-16 in our rates, and that's tracking to be right on cue of what we budgeted for in health insurance. New Hampshire retirement, there was a little bit of a spike in New Hampshire retirement. That's because the rates have changed. The police department went up to 26, just over 26%. Police and fire are at 29, and all other employees are at 11% match that the town has to pay for in the New Hampshire retirement. And
Sorry, could you say the percentages again?
11.17 is Group 1 employer portion. Fire is around 29%, and police are around 26%, 26.38, I believe. And those are why you're seeing the spikes. And police had a significant jump. They were at 19 the year before, they went up to 26. So that's why you see the big jump in retirement for police in this fiscal year. Once again, those are tracking to what we have budgeted for. Overtime. Overtime is pretty steady, knock on wood. We've had a good first half of the year in our overtime in the highway division, in other departments, communications. There's been a little bit of spike in the police overtime due to circumstances of bringing on employees and things of that sort. We had several vacancies in the first quarter of the fiscal year in the police department, and we finally have all those positions filled. So that overtime number should even off through the rest of the year.
Do we see a reduction in payroll because of those?
Yes, we have a savings. We have a savings in their 8104 accounts, which is their payroll account for their police officers. So we have a savings in that account, which will offset this over expenditure in overtime right now.
I said more than offset, as well as things like health insurance payments that we didn't make for a couple of months and things like that.
Yep.
Now the fun part, the revenues. Interest is still tracking low. Even though they did raise the rate, we haven't really received any additional interest rates. Building permits are starting to pop a little bit, which is always a good sign about the economy. They seem to be tracking right on the $100,000 mark that we budgeted for. But a good fall, we had a good long fall building season because of the weather.
Yeah.
So building permits are looking better than they have in years past in the fall. The big one is the auto registrations. Auto registrations are up $100,000 for the first quarter alone. Heard the other night that I think there was 17 million more cars bought in the United States last year. So that's when we're talking about revenues at the budget, that's why we feel comfortable increasing that budget number by $100,000. But they are tracking above budget, and probably will exceed budget by between $200,000 and $300,000 if everything stays the same and we don't have a hiccup in the economy. From what I saw, we're tracking around 4.3 right now for the first half of the year. I looked at the December numbers today. So we are tracking over $4 million. I think we only had about $3.9 million in the budget. Basically, that's what I have for the first quarter. Just know we have ample appropriations, and we keep a close eye on our revenues. There are several other revenue factors that we look at when projecting our appropriations and our revenue estimates. And it looks like auto registration is definitely going to be above right now. Building permits, depending on what kind of winter we have, would also determine how quick people get out and get the building permits for next year. If we have a prolonged winter that goes through March and early April, then building permits will be delayed in the back end, but they were healthy for the first, 5 months of our fiscal year.
Sounds good. Yes, Jody?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I'm looking at the sheet with the numbers and the percentages that was in our packet. And
Yes.
this may just be a newbie question, but I'm looking at the percentage of budget remaining, and I understand that different departments expend differently. Some are front-loaded, some are back-loaded, but I'm just looking at the difference in the percentages, because you would think about, since a quarter, about 75-60% would be remaining, and that seems in line. I see a couple of departments are less than that, like substantially less than that, and I just wondered if that's because that's the spending for that department.
One in
Which
particular
one?
is solid
waste, yeah, 45%.
We do a purchase order at the beginning of the year for
Okay.
all our trash removal, so that ties up that money. And the column you're looking at is the very last column. And we tie up their money for the whole year for the
Okay.
7,500
Okay.
tons that we project that is going to be there, and that's why
All right.
their budget is there. And that's been year after year after year.
Yeah,
that
and
they
I
have a
figured
small
it was an
number.
explanation like that,
Right.
but I appreciate you.
And some of the other
sharing
ones
that.
do have other POs that are for the full year, and we take them in the first quarter.
And welfare is in the same
Wel-
position?
Welfare, we have all the, when we're talking about the welfare budget, remember she had Hospice House and St. John Newman
Uh-huh.
Food Bank. We pay all those out at the beginning of the year,
Okay.
July 1st.
Okay.
And that's $75,000 of her budget gets paid in the first quarter.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Paul? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the minutes. We had tabled the minutes from November 19th, so we had time to review. Are there changes? Let's do a motion, and then we can...
Move approval of the November 19th minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, second by Tom Mahan. Any changes or corrections? Dan, you had some.
Just for clarification, after talking to staff and reviewing with Becky, I'm comfortable that they could stand just the way they were.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other changes? Yes, Jody?
Thank you. I have a couple. Page 11 of 12, line 42, Counselor Valancourt stated the town will need to commit. Page 12 of 21, line 15, I believe the S should be taken off of begins. Council, oh, wait a minute. Yes, begin
You're right.
planning now. Sometimes I go back over my corrections and I correct my corrections. Page 21. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 20 of 21. Line 20, created a beaver management policy. The word management should go in there. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, any other corrections? Tom Koenig?
Just to show that I tried to read it, on page 4, line 11, towards the end, it says of this one, Chairman Harrington remarked that is not putting them down. I think that she is missing, that she is not putting them down.
Thank you. I agree.
That's all I was able to catch, though. Line 11.
11. Any others? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes as revised, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, 700. Okay, minutes of December 17th at 7 p.m. Here. Motion?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, seconded by
Me.
Dan Dwyer. Any revisions Jody?
Thank you. On page 7 of 31, line 26, just for clarification, I don't know that I was that articulate when I was speaking either, but
What number again, what line?
line 26.
26,
Sorry.
okay.
So she commented she does not know enough about the legalities regarding the ordinances and the right to survey. I think that would just add a little clarification about what I was talking
Rather
about.
than this.
Yes. Regarding the ordinances pertaining to the right to survey, something along those lines.
Okay.
No, I was talking about the ordinance for the road work permit. That was what I was talking about.
But also to
So-
continue to really have an educated. You want
Yes.
to continue with that. Yeah.
To really have an educated opinion one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yep. Because in one sentence, I'm taking a stand, and then in the next sentence, I'm saying I can't take a stand, so it just sounded kind of conflicting. Anyway, line 34 on the same page, 7 of 31, could we just have, instead of they, Chairman Harrington stated her understanding that legally they, could we just say Kinder Morgan?
Sure.
And then I had a question on line 37. Was it also to make it clear to them they are not allowed to go on properties? Were we referencing personal property? What were we referencing there when you spoke, Nancy? Do you remember?
I believe it was on town properties, wasn't it? Because that's all we have.
Was it right-of-way properties or
No, private properties.
private properties? So could we just add private?
Well, they can go on private properties if they have signed
Yeah, but they can't wander across
through the easement.
rock walls and stuff like that because they think it's right of way or something like that. Is
Okay.
what I thought you were talking about at that time.
Okay. Then we can put it in private.
Okay. Eileen?
Yes.
Yes,
Eileen?
I wasn't there, but the discussion that we've always had about that was that sometimes the right-of-way is actually larger than people realize, so that if someone's lawn happened to be in the right-of-way, someone had grown their lawn or had put in a wall, that they wouldn't go beyond what appeared to be somebody's yard.
Okay, so it would be under private. What you're suggesting is
It is.
private's appropriate.
You could if you want, but I'm just...
For clarification.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you. That was it. Page 27, line 29, it says Counselor Boyd. I believe that was Counselor Dwyer.
What line again?
Line 29,
On what page?
page 27.
Thank you.
And then on page 28, line 45, I believe that should say Counselor Boyd.
Repeat that again?
Page 28, line 45, it just says Counselor requested. I believe it should be Counselor Boyd. And page 30, just since it's a separation of two comments from two different counselors, line 24 and 25, could we just have a space between those lines where Counselor Rothaus is speaking
Okay.
after I was speaking?
Space between 24 and 25.
Please. I mean, that's how we do all the others, so. And then that's it for me. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, any other changes? Seeing none. Motion's on the floor, accepting with revisions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, 700. Comments from the press? I think we can avoid that. Comments from the public, ditto. Comments from the council. Jody?
Thank you. In reviewing the minutes from November 19th, I saw at the very end that we were discussing the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and Eileen had indicated that she was going to ask the department heads to give us a list of things that they actually receive in terms of training, et cetera, so that it can be reviewed again. I just wondered if we were going to get that information while we were in the budget process.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot.
That's okay.
So I thank you for bringing it up, and I
That's
will
why
find
minutes
out.
are great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments from the council? Seeing none, I will go, yes, John.
Sorry, the Technology Committee did meet last night, and they continued to review the situation and status of technology in town and review it with Chuck Miller and continue to talk about things on the order of security and networks and mapping and infrastructure and all that good stuff. So they are looking at every possible way to try and save some money. And most of them are not going very far due to the difficulty with getting people to change from what they're used to or what they're commonly dealing with. But they are reviewing the different thoughts and ideas, and that's a good thing. It's got us all looking at and thinking about what we're doing in town on a technology perspective.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tom Mahan, second Tom Koenig. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed, I'm assuming 7-0-0.